Good morning. I'm hoping you're still hanging in there. Appreciate you watching the videos and trying to keep up with your work. Some of you are asking how to turn in your work. You have two options. Some of you are taking a picture of it or making it into a PDF and emailing it to me, which would be okay. Or you could just hold your papers until you come back, keep them in order, and then turn them all in at the same time. Um, Either way, it's not the best situation, but at least you're trying to keep up because, as you can see, the math is getting pretty intense here. And so, if you're trying to wait until you get back and then say, well, what did I miss? And then try catching up on everything at that time, it's probably a little overwhelming at that time. So, keep up the work. I know it's not the ideal situation, but we're just got to do what we can do. Okay. So, you should have the study guide. I think it was 43, if I'm not mistaken, from yesterday. And we got most of the way through that study guide, working with integer exponents, our rational exponents, which are numbers like 3/4, which is 0.75, decimals and fractions. And now we're going to talk a little bit about, well, what happens when I can't put the number into the calculator and we still have to simplify. And so here's a couple things just to kind of be aware of. It's kind of a confusing chart, but square root always indicates a non-negative number. So that means we can never take the square root of a negative number. If this was be careful here. You can't, if you did the square root of just negative 81, it's going to give you an error because the square root, there's no number times itself that will equal a negative. Okay. Now, we have situations like where if I have an even exponent under with the 81, I need to solve this part here first, the 81 to the fourth power, because that's still going to be a positive number. And even if this was a negative 81 to the fourth power, well, because it's an even exponent, that would make this back to a positive. Okay, so we can still solve it, even though Fisher earlier said, we can never have a negative underneath the radical sign. We can if we have an exponent that is an even number. Okay, moving on down to this one. So here I have examples of what they're talking about over here on the left. So if I have 32, but I have an odd n, so that'd be like 5 and 5 here. Well, this number that's underneath the radical sign will still end up being a positive. And then if I take, even if it's an odd number, that radical there, it'll still give me a 32. So that's okay. Here's where we get into a little bit of trouble, though. If I have a negative 32, and since my exponent is an odd number, my answer is going to be an odd number if I take negative 32 to the fifth power. I did it on my calculator. It's this number right here. Now, if I go and clear out my calculator and try to do this and take the square root of that, then I am going to have some problems there because it's going to say error because you cannot, again, take a root of some number that is a negative. And so what happens is we'll have to do some creative things with our calculator. There is an answer to that. It's just called an imaginary number. And so you won't get any of those in high school, 9th grade, but when you get to Algebra 2, you'll start working with some of those kinds of things. So when your calculator pumps out, syntax error or something like that on that problem, just look, do I have a negative sign underneath the radical sign there? Okay. All right. You won't have any of those problems today, but just know that there are still answers is where we're at. Now, if we learned yesterday about some things that when we were up here and we were looking for the shortcuts, on number 2a here was kind of the shortcut. That this number here, 3, was our exponent, and then this number here, 4, was our radical. So we can work backwards sometimes too, or work with variables to help us solve that problem. So we just got to remember that the numerator is the exponent and the radical is the denominator. So if we work backwards on this guy here, because we just have letters, we can do it this way. We can say, okay, this guy right here is my numerator, these guys right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say y to the 9th, or excuse me, that's an x to the 9th. We're back up here. X to the 9th and y to the 3rd Again, those are my numerators. And we said our root is the denominators. So now we come out here and we put the denominators in, a 3. They're both going to have a 3. And look what happens. We can reduce this. 9 divided by 3 is 3. So our final answer is x to the third. 3 divided by 3 is 1. Why? Okay, let's do this one. So we're going to take, when we have an exponent of an exponent, we want to multiply these guys here. That's the rule. You multiply them. So I have x to the 8th, and 4 times a half. Well, 4 times 1 is 4, and 4 divided by 2 is 2. So I have a y to the second. That's my first term. I'm going to put a dot there because this is a times, because they're touching each other. The parentheses are touching the radical sign. Now over here, I need to get rid of this root here. So again, this one here is going to be my numerator. This one here is going to be my denominator. And so y3 over 3 is y to the first. Now when I'm multiplying and my bases are the same, we add the exponents. So our final answer is x to the 8th, y to the third. Crazy. We're just kind of manipulating things around because we know our exponents and radical rules. Okay, where these numbers go, and then we're just reducing those fractions that are in the numerator, or as our exponents. All right, give this one a shot. Give it a shot for these two, and then come on back and let's talk about it. Okay, even though I have the answers on the next page, I want to walk you through it so make sure that if you made a mistake, you kind of see my work verbally on how I did it. So this one wasn't so bad. I'm going to highlight these guys again. These are going to be my numerators. So I'm going to say x, whoops. I got to get back here, and the pen's not working very well today. All right, so I'm going to put an x and a y. Those are my numerators, 4 and 12. And then here's my denominators of my fraction, that's the exponent. It's going to be a 4 and a 4. So this one wasn't so bad, because that's 4 divided by 4 is x to the first. 12 divided by 4 is 3, so this is going to be y to the third. Now this one's a little bit more complicated, but not really. Just do your work. An exponent of an exponent means you take this guy here and you multiply it times everything inside the parentheses. Well, there's a little 1 on that x here. That's x to the first. So 2 times 1 is 2. So that first variable becomes x squared. We're going to take 2 times this fraction. Well, again, some kids the other day were kind of confused on this. If I take a half times 2, it looks like that. Well, we put it over 1. Fraction, you do numerator times numerator, denominator times denominator. So that'd be 2 over 2, which is 1. Now when I do it, I just take this times the numerator and say 2 times 1 is 2, and then divide by 2, which is 1. So really that's just a 1 up there. Now let's go down to the bottom here. This is I want to do it down here. X to the 5th, this is my numerator. This is my denominator. So 5 over 5 is 1, so that's x to the first. Now, really, this x's up here looks like this in expanded form. So one of the x's down here on the bottom will cancel out with one of the x's up there. And so our final answer is just xy. All that right here ends up being just this guy right here. Now let's go back to this x squared y. Because as you get older, we don't want to do this expanded form stuff here. So what I do is I say, okay, I have 1x on the bottom and I have 2 on the top. Do I have more on the top or the bottom? I have 2 on the more on the top. So I'd say one of these would cancel out with one of the 2 up there. And so I'm doing all this math in my head, and I would just say, okay, there's still 1 left over in the numerator. Okay, so we did a little bit of mental math there. See, we got those same answers, I believe. Yep. All right, so let's go down to the homework that you had last night, and let's just do a couple together, and then today you'll have a practice sheet that you can do on your own. So let's go ahead and try. I think yesterday I told you to do, 1 through 16, and then 17. So 17 would be our first one. So we'll do 17 and 20, and then you can do those other four, and then we'll turn our paper in. This comes 5. That's my numerator. This is my denominator. 5 over 5 is 1, so that one just becomes a y. That was a nice easy one. Let's talk about this one. What if there isn't a number here? What is here? It's a 2. So that would become x 4 over 2, y 12 over 2, and now let's reduce our exponents. Final answer, x to the second power, y to the sixth power. Okay, let's do one of these guys. This is 4 times 1, so that's 4 times 1 is 4 divided by 2, so this is going to be x squared. This guy right here is going to look like this. X, there's my exponent. 2 is my radical, so that becomes x to the third. So I want to put a times here because these guys are touching each other. So now x to the second times x to the third, we add the exponents here, so that's going to be x to the fifth. Okay? All right, try these two real quick, and I think you'll find that they're not that hard. Okay, do those 3, I guess you got. Anyhow, you're going to turn that paper in, and then you'll have a practice page today. So that's all I have for today. Real short, real sweet. Lots of time to get your work done. Tomorrow, the kids in school are going to be taking the ALA test. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but you can't take it at home. So there just might be a quick little paper that's a little mixed up what we've done all this week, just to keep your skills up, because we're going to have to move that quiz to Monday. But anyhow, it'll be just kind of a quick paper to make sure we don't lose some of those skills that we learned Monday through Thursday, and then probably take the quiz on Monday, plus a little bit more to learn. Okay, so I'll have all that information for you on tomorrow's little Google Classroom. All right, have a good day.